Welcome back to part 4 of how to make a board game in Unreal Engine. This is part 4B. Part 4A was just some Blender work where we made just a couple pawn meshes and this indicator circle to show where you can move to. If you have your own idea for meshes and you're familiar with Blender, feel free to skip it. But we will be using those assets in this tutorial. But this tutorial will all be Unreal Engine and actually getting the units in game and then setting up for movement and then attacking and some more of the fun stuff. So the first thing we're going to do is I brought in these are my assets, but if you follow the tutorial from last time, you should have one pawn, but feel free to bring in some more. And then I also imported in that indicator circle. We're going to make the materials for those quick. So let's right click. Let's close materials. And we'll start first, another folder, unit materials. And I want to do one thing. When I imported in units, meshes, I'm just going to bring my texture into that material folder. Let's drag this, unit materials, move here. Okay. And now we'll create a material and unit, team, color, master. And you can open that up. And let me pull up my other project just to make sure I do this right. Yeah. Okay. So we have our texture coming in. Which for me, I'm using this one, which gives it this look. We're going to add a multiplier node. Bring that into our base color. And another multiplier. Whoops, that bumped offset. Bring that into here. And on the A, if you hold 3, click, this will be the color. So right click on it, convert to a parameter. It's called team color. And off of this, we will promote to a parameter and base color multiplier. This will make sense when we get into actually applying these multiplier. And by default, we'll do 1. And maybe for this, we'll do like pink so it really stands out. So this will actually be the tint that's applying to the texture. And then as you change this multiplier, right, it makes it stronger or weaker. So if you wanted a little bit more pronounced pink, right, but still have a little bit of the texture in there, you can do it that way. Or if you want the texture to really dominate and just a lighter tint, you can do it that way. And then the last thing I'm going to do is just add in a multiplier. 1, left click, constant, and we'll just zero out the metallic. Okay, so I'm going to come back and we can create, right click, create a material instance. Let's call this unit team blue, and we can duplicate that, red, green, and gold. Those will be the 5 or the 4 team colors for me, but do whatever you want. And let's open those up. So now you can click this to activate it, click this. And we'll do a green. Yeah, I think something like that looks pretty good. We'll do a blue. That looks pretty good. And red. It kind of almost is red, but this one I might play around with that. Yeah, make it a little bit more vibrant. Might do that for the blue too, actually. Yeah, I like that a little better, a little bit brighter. And the gold, make this probably a little bit more yellow. And this might need, yeah, I think that looks pretty good. And so now with your meshes, right, we'll do this in game, but you just kind of look, or not in game, but in the class we're going to make, but you just kind of look at what this looks like. and can pull these into the map quick. Just see if we like the colors. I think for me, I don't think that's bright enough. I'm just going to bring this into another window. Yeah. All right. So I switched my multiplier to 10. And that kind of gives me a little bit of a better look, I think. Let's bring this guy in green. Not so bad, but I think yeah, for me, I kind of like the brighter. I think so. I might go that way, and I might make this a little bit darker. And let's bring this one in red. Not so bad, but let's see what it looks like getting brighter. Yeah, I think that looks okay. And lastly, let's just make sure the gold looks all right. Gold, yellow. Yeah, I like that. So I think that looks fairly good. I do think I don't really like how the sun is coming in though. So let's grab our sky sphere or no, direction light. Let's go to this quick. I think I kind of might bring this over here so I can just kind of look at it a little bit better. I think if I get a little bit more of a vertical view. I do like a little bit of shadow. I don't know, I kind of play around with it, but I think this looks pretty good. So we got that done. Get rid of all of these. Okay, so what we want to do is I made a new folder, units, and actually, yeah, we should probably put this in the blueprints. So let me pull this up. Yeah, just an actor. Okay, so actually, I'm going to do this in units. I think it keeps it a little bit cleaner. So in units, right click, blueprint, and we'll do an actor. We'll just call this VP pawn unit master. So this will be our master class for the units. And within here, first thing we're going to do is add a static mesh. And I'm just going to call this base tile. And I don't think I brought that in yet, so let me do that quick. So in the last tutorial, we just made that, this had little diamond. What did I call that? Pawn base tile. So bring that in. And I think all this should look good. So this is just what the actual unit will sit on. I did get this error. If you're getting this, it's because when you're exporting it from Blender, you're not smoothing on the faces. So let me just grab this quick. So if you're ever getting that error when you export it, FBX, and this is on base tile under geometry, make sure you have face, smoothing face, and export that. And then when I come back into the engine, re-import base mesh. Now that error's gone. So if you get that, that's why. So let's come back into our blueprint. It says base tile will be the pawn base tile. And then we will put another static mesh. But this will be the unit pawn. And I'm going to make this the default route. This unit pawn, just grab like footman for default. Okay. And the last thing I want to do is a decal. So we'll come back to this in a little bit, but just kind of square this box. And you might have to manipulate these scales just a little bit. That's how it snaps. But basically, what this will do, you can see how it's kind of changing the color of the mesh, and we'll make a material for this, but when you select the unit, or actually more accurately, when you hover over it, it'll highlight it in the material. So just a good indicator for the player of what they may be selecting. So we're going to turn this off, but we can set it up now. And you don't want it crazy big. You want it just to kind of envelop the pawn as closely as you can. So we'll leave it like that for now. We'll come back to that later. And where's the activate? I think is it visible? Uncheck. Yeah, uncheck visible. And then we'll turn this on when you hover over it. Okay, so we have our master. Let's go back to that. So now we can create some child blueprints. So I'll call this like BP pawn footman. Duplicate that, and BP pawn swordsman. BP pawn spearman. So this is actually making all the different units we want. And within these, let's open these up quick. Here's our footman, and I want this pawn to be the footman. That's good. Close this out. For our spearman, open. And for our unit pawn, spearman. And open up our swordsman. Swordsman. Good. And then we can close those. And we'll actually do all the code in the master, and we don't have to duplicate it. And close this. We can close this. We'll leave this open for now. Close these. Okay. So where do we want to start? I think let's start with actually spawning in our units, and then we'll kind of take the rest from there. So where did we put our tables? Is that assets? Yeah, okay. So pull up your structure and whatever table you're using. So within your structure, if you don't have number of units yet, I'd add that in. So in our game, you'll be able to buy units as different rounds go by from the keep, but you're going to start with some units. So that's what this is going to set up. It's basically the number of footmen, spearmen, swordsmen, horsemen, knights per each tile that you start with, and that'll come in from our CSV. So make sure your structure is set up to accommodate that, and make sure your CSV, the headers, are identical text to this. All right, so if you look at this, number of footmen, spearmen, number of footmen, spearmen, same amount of spaces, everything like that. So what we're going to do is, the way I want it to work, let me pull up an example, is it's a 1v1 map. This, you can ignore this, I'm kind of testing out combat, but I'm going to have 2 units starting the keep and one next to it for both sides. So that's what we're going to set up in Excel and then the CSV, and then import in those starting settings. So I like to do things in Excel. You can just completely stay in a CSV if you want, but for me, right, I can have a 4-player map, 2-player map, and I'm going to actually kind of build everything, and then I can do conditional formatting and just do things to kind of help me visualize that a little bit better. But the way we're going to do this is, so each of these keeps, I'm going to have each player start with a footman and a spearman, and then in the tile next to the keep, I'm going to start with a swordsman. So I'm doing that for each player, like so. And let me get rid of this. Make sure there's no more horse rings, because we don't actually have that mesh yet. Okay, so then what you can do in your CSV is just copy all of this, Control Alt V, paste as a value, boom. So now we have these here. Oh, not save, review, save. And now come back into Unreal Engine and re-import in our table. Oh, disconnected. This one, 4-player. And I do have some sort of error. 1 second, let me see that. Ah, I found it. I forgot to add one thing to my structure. So the way I'm doing this is that there's a player index, which I think we talked about in the last video, but player, let me do this over here. Player 1, so you're gonna have player 1, player 2, player 3, player 4. Their corresponding index in game will be 0, 1, 2, 3. So I have this column here for player index, and 9 means, right, nobody is how I'm doing the logic. But 0 would be player 1. Index 1 would be player 2. And I'll make this a 9. And index 2 is player 3. Index 3 is player 4. And I have that in my CSV. But what I forgot to do is add that to my structure. So here, we will call this player index. And this will be an integer. Save that. And now when we re-import this in, there should be no errors. Perfect. So now we have a player index, and you can see right the number of units mine. So that is perfect. And now I think we want to go to keep this tile open for now, and we want to grab our grid manager and refresh all nodes. Okay, so basically what we want to have happen, let me pull this up in my project too so I do this right, is off of our event graph. So when we begin play, we're going to destroy all the static meshes. What the heck is this? 1 sec. Okay, that was weird. I had these white lines. If you have those, all you have to do is just kind of drag something off and then put it back down here. Get rid of them. Okay, so the way this is going to work is, let's go back to our begin play. When I think, yes, we're spawning in the tiles, and then we are starting settings. Yeah, okay, so we do have a setup. So you should have all of this code already, but begin play, destroy the static meshes, do these for each loops, spawn the actors, and then on the completion, actually set the tiles, and then we grab the information from the CSV and then push that through to starting settings. The one thing we have to add, I think, should have the player index coming through. Or where am I setting that? 1 sec. Okay, I actually set that in the grid manager. So, perfect. Okay. So this would be, you might have these as new or this one, but if you followed the tutorial earlier, you'll have this in the starting section, settings, which is for the individual tile. But this player index we're going to set, and I think we need a variable for that in here. Yep. So create a variable and owning player index. We'll make this an integer. And we do want this replicated. I think through all doing this in here, but we do want to make sure this runs on the server, which it should be because this would be running from the server, but just in case we're actually making an event. So I'm gonna scroll down. Let's move all this junk over. here. So we're going to create a custom event, and we'll just do set owning player index server. So again, with replication, we want the server to know what player index this is, and then have the server cascade that to the clients, all the other players, and even the local player that does own it. So to do that, we're gonna have this run on the server, make it reliable, and then we will set this new variable from the server, and then because it's replicated, it'll then populate down to the client. So when we come back into our grid manager, after we get the data and we get the appropriate tile, we'll pull off this and set owning player index server. Pop that in here, continue this, and we'll drag, this like that. So this will come through and it'll set that on the server. So now the tile and all the clients know who this tile belongs to. And then in our starting settings, this is where we're actually setting the mesh and material and some height variation, but we are bringing through our units. So all this logic will be done in the tile, and we're gonna have to create a couple different functions. Let me pull those up. Yeah, okay. So we will create a function, spawn starting units. And let me make sure this is running on, starting settings should be running on the server and reliable. Okay. And then this start or spawn starting units, we're gonna have 5 units, but number footman, number, what order do we go? Spearman, number swordsman, number horseman, and number knights. And back to our event graph, we will drag this function in, and actually, I bet I can do, I think a cleaner way of doing this will actually be to run a sequence. So hold S and press. So our first sequence will be to settle the materials. And our second sequence will be to spawn our starting units. So we bring this up here and go like this. Bring this down. Then we can just pass all of these through. Okay. And then within here, we are going to do another sequence. We'll have 5, 1 for each unit. And we're going to have to do a bunch of different checks. And checks will be, is the number of footmen, for instance, greater than 0? And then if true, we'll actually spawn that actor in. So we duplicate this. Boom, 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 boom. Connect all of these. And make it look a little bit better. Okay. And then, if these are true, they'll actually spawn them. So I'm going to create a bunch more functions, but this one will be spawn unit footman. And this will have an input number, and then we can just duplicate this with Control W, spearman, and swordman. Okay. And so if the information being passed to this tile is greater than 0, so 1 or 2 or 3, that is true, we'll do this and connect this. Let's make this look a little bit better. Okay. And then after it does that, it'll check, is there spearmen coming in? Let's give ourselves a little more space. Okay. And I'm going to drag some of these down a little bit so it's a little less clustered. Now we'll do our swordsman, true. Bring this here. Reroute nodes. Okay. Looks messy, but it'll work. Okay. And then what we're going to do in here is we're going to do a for loop. Not for each loop, just for loop, for loop. This one. Okay, so this is going to look a little weird because what we're going to do is we're going to pull off this and we're going to do a -1, plug it in the last loop. So if there is one unit, that one footman that's going to spawn on this tile, it's going to -1, which would be 0, which would be the last index, but it's because this index starts on 0. We could actually just do something like a 1, but I know this works, so it's not broke, don't fix it. So basically, it's going to start this at 0, and so if we have 1 coming in, we want to subtract 1, and it'll do first index 0, but then last index will be 0, so it'll do it once. I hope that makes sense. And then what we'll do is we're going to plug in a couple things, but we'll spawn actor from class, and this will be our footman. And we're going to add another variable that's called units on tile. And this will be our BP unit master and an array. Get this, add. So when the unit gets spawned, we'll add it to this array so we can easily figure out which units are assigned to this tile. And we're going to have to come back to this because we got to do a couple more things. So one of the things is we want to set actually where the units spawn. So as you can kind of see in my game, right, they're spawning in specific places on the tiles, not just in the center. So we actually want to make a spot to assign them to. So we're going to come into our HexTile and the viewport. And the way I'm going to do this is I'm just going to make some little squares. So we're going to add a cube, yeah. And we're going to make this pretty small. Maybe 0.5. So this will be hidden in game, but it's really just for us to kind of visualize where we want them to spawn. And for these purposes, I'm going to bring in my keep. So maybe we want the first unit to spawn up front here. Let's bring this up a little bit. 10, 20, 30. Yeah, I think that looks pretty good. So this will be unit 1 spawn. And we can duplicate that. This will be unit 2 spawn. And then we'll put unit 2 somewhere like this. And unit 3 spawn. Kind of put him. I might maybe stagger these a little bit. Can I have this like this? Yeah, something like that. You do whatever you want, but something like that. It looks good. And then we will set the visible to off. And the other thing I just want to do quick, just to make sure we don't have any issues, go into collision and just no collision. Let's just make sure this is ignoring everything. Actually, let's just do custom and ignore all. That way it doesn't block anything. And I'm gonna shadow. Yeah, and let's turn off shadow too. So won't cast a shadow. Okay, and receives. I think we can close that. Turn this one off too. Okay, so coming back to our footman. So we need to do a couple things within here. So the first thing we want to do is figure out, can the unit spawn here? So the way the logic is going to work for me is you can't have more than 3 units on a tile. So when we're spawning, right, that won't be a problem because we can easily control that within the CSV. But as you're moving units, I want that logic check. So I'm going to do that here too, just to make sure that we never have any issues. But to do that, we're going to create a function, and I'm just going to call it can unit go on tile, question mark. And I want this to be a peer. And we're going to grab our units on tile, get, or not get, I think it's just length. Yep, length. And so for me, my max is going to be 3. So if this is greater than 2, right, that would mean that there is 3 units, right? So if that branch, do a branch, actually no, not a branch. We're going to do a select. Just bring that return node and output Boolean true. So can the unit go to this tile? It'll be true or false. And then from here, I think we do the select. Yes, okay. And this will make a Boolean. So if there are more than 2 units, meaning there's 3 units, then we're going to set this to false. So then this will return as not true, right? False. So they can't go on the tile. And if there is 2 or less, this will return as true. So then this will be true, so they can spawn on the tile. And so the way we'll do this is when we're actually spawning our footman, we'll bring this in, we'll run a branch, and connect this, and then we'll come into the true, will actually be what spawns the unit. And when we compile this, we're going to get an error because we don't have a transform, so we're going to do that next. I'm going to do a macro for this. Get unit starting, or get unit tile location, we'll call it. So this will actually be what is telling the unit where on the tile it can be assigned to. And for the output, we'll go back. This will be a vector, and it will be spawn location. And the way we will do this is, let's see, do I need executes? Yeah. And add in a couple executes. So let's call this in out. So we come in, we are going to do a switch on int. We grab 1, 2, 3. Okay. So if there is 0 units already on the tile, this is where you'll go. If there's 1 unit on the tile, this is where it will go. If there's 2 units on the tile, this is where it will go. So to get the number of units, or get where you want it to, where you want this unit to go on the tile, which is going to come off of these little squares we made, grab our units on tile and get our length. So how many units are already in this array? And so if there's 0, drag all these in. Get world location. Okay. Just kind of line this up so it looks a little bit better. And we will promote this to a variable. We'll call it unit spawn location, or actually we'll do unit tile location. Just come here. And we'll set this here. And then all of these will pass through to the out. And then we'll connect these here. Boom. And now when we come back into our footman, we can drag in this macro. Actually, I wonder what we could do this as a... No, we can't do it as pure because we need to do the switch. So, never mind. Actually, I bet there's a way, but this will work. And I don't want to convert this. I think we want... let's do this. I'm going to split this. There. So I'm splitting this because we're getting a location, and I don't want like the scale or rotation. We can adjust that later within the actual pawn. So we'll just pass through location. Okay, and actually one thing I want to add too is if we go back into our master, I want to create 2 more variables within here. The first one will be owning player index, and this will be an integer and replicate it. And the other will be the owning tile, and this will be HexTile. And also replicated. So this will make sure that the unit knows which player owns it and then what tile they belong to. So I'm going to do this via custom event just so I can make sure it's being set on the server and everything goes smoothly. So set owning player index server and server reliable, and we're going to do one more custom event, set owning tile server reliable. We'll add an input, and this will be the HexTile object reference owning tile. And for this one, this will just be an integer owning player index. I'll save. Set this here. And we'll set this here. And because we're doing this within our master class, all of this code translates to all the children. So that's why it's really nice to do kind of a parent-child type of class. Footmen, spearmen, swordsmen, horsemen, knights, they all inherit anything we're doing in this master class. Just come back into our tile. And let's just drag this out here quick. And so once this unit spawns, set owning player index server and set owning tile. And you could do this by making those variables instance editable and expose on spawn, but I just, in theory that should work because I think this will be running on the server, but I just like doing it this way just so I know these things are being set correctly on the server, so we don't have any replication issues. So we're going to pass only player index from the tile to the unit, because those should be the same. And for the only tile, just do, oops, type in self and pass that through. And then we'll add this unit to this array so we know where it is. Cool. So for our spearman and swordsman, we can copy all of this over. Pass this through and this to here, and the only difference this will be spearman. And come into our swordsman, paste it, connect this, and this. And this will be our swordman. Perfect. Okay, and the last thing I want to do is come back into our unit. And after we set this, let's make a, we actually have to do this via custom events. So let's do custom event, set unit team color. And for this, I'm going to make a variable in the unit. Let's be team color array. And this will be a material instance. And this will be an array. So for me, I'm going to have a max of 4 teams, so 4 colors. So team 1 will be team unit color blue. Team 2 will be red, and then green, and then what I call gold. Yeah, gold. And so this event will initially run on the server, and reliable. New custom event, set unit team color MC. This will be server. And this is actually already running on the server, so I think we can delete this. So off this, we'll do set unit team color MC. And we are setting our player index on the server. Such replicate down to the clients. So it should work. So we're going to pull off this and get. And what we're going to be getting is our player index. So from there, we'll get the individual material instance. And then from there, let's drag out both of these. Set material. Pass this through. And same thing here. And pass that through. Okay, I think we should be able to spawn units in game now. Let me just kind of run through things quick. So start the game, delete static meshes, add the tile actors, get our information from the CSV, set what kind of tile it is, set the player index, run the starting settings. Starting settings will set the actual mesh and materials for the tile, spawn units. So we'll do our checks. This will spawn the units, and they will spawn at the transform location. Their player index will be set, their only tile will be set. After they're added to the array, which this probably needs to be replicated. Units on tile replicated. When we set our owning player index, I'll set here on the server, that's replicated through, run the multicast to set the color so everybody should be able to see it. Okay, let's try this out. And I'm just going to do 2. Okay, we have some things happening, but it doesn't look There's a lot spawning, but we have units spawning, but I don't know why we have so many. But the colors are looking good, so that's good. Everybody can see the colors. Everybody can see the same amount of units. Let's see. What's green? So what I'm checking is just, does the client see exactly what the server sees? And that looks to be good, but I gotta figure out why so many units are spawning, because it shouldn't be this many. So let me hop right back. Okay, figured out the issue. So really actually a couple different issues, but the issue is really coming from these loops. So we had this connected like this, but we don't want it on completion of this loop. We want it on completion of the X grid loop. So have this completed, move to the set tile actors. What was happening is this was running multiple times. So then it was spawning the actor multiple times, which I don't think was the problem, but this starting settings was running like 6 times, maybe even more. So it was spawning the unit 6, 8 times or whatever, instead of just once. So have it on completion of this loop run to set tile sectors. The other thing I added in, kind of move this over, clean it up, is off of our begin play, pull off this and type in switch. Switch has authority. So grab that, and then on the authority. So this makes it so it only runs on the server. And then from there, in your actual tile blueprint, click on class defaults, type in replicates, and check this for replicates. So this is only going to spawn on the server, but it is going to then replicate. Think of it as a variable replicating. It'll replicate to all of the clients if we check that. So make sure that's checked. The other thing is within our unit, we'll do the same things, class defaults, and set that to replicate. So the unit will only spawn on the server, but it'll replicate to the clients as well. And then what happens is, and I'm gonna think of a way to kind of clean this up a little bit better. But what's happening is the server comes into the game first, right? Server joins, sets up the server, and the clients take a little bit to initialize. Really, I've kind of found it's 2 seconds. And so what's happening is this event of setting the color is happening before the clients get in the game. So then when the clients join, they don't see the change. And there's a couple ways we can fix this, but for now, just put in a delay of 2 seconds. You might have to do 3, and then run this. And so I'm going to print string this, but I'll show you. So we come in game, nothing's happening, client's in, and now this runs on server and client. And so after doing that, you should have all of your units in. It should just be 3 units per tile, and the colors should all be matching. So server and client are seeing the same thing. I'm going to play around with this off screen after we're done with this video, but I'm going to think of a better way to handle this versus the delay. We can either do a replicate rep with a notify, which I think then would work anytime a client comes in, or we can just do something from the game mode that when on the event log on, we can then just run this event again. So every time a client comes in game, every unit just repopulates their color. So they're all set. But you should be at this point now where client and server are seeing the same thing, and we have units in game, and that's a pretty good place to be. So I think we're going to call the video here, and what we'll do next is actually start interacting with the tiles and pawns. So as you hover over units, we're going to make them, maybe let me just demonstrate quick. You hover over units, this is that decal turning on. So they'll highlight, and then when you click on them, do something like this, show the adjacent tiles, and then work on movement. And then after that, we'll start working on battles. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. And if you have any issues, just leave some comments and I'll help you out. Thanks.